Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning even to some of you who are joining us today. And thank you for joining us for the session, All Boats Rise. Who else can benefit from remote internships? We have a slight change to our presenters. Rachel Crisso could not make our presentation, and Ed Holroyd Pierce will be filling in for Rachel for this presentation. Before we begin, I just want to thank Virtual Internships and International Experience Canada for your support of the Internship Summit. Without you, it truly couldn't happen. So I greatly appreciate your contributions to this. And I want to thank everyone who is tuning in today to this session. It's going to be a really great, informative session. Please use the chat function if you want to introduce yourself and let us know where you're calling in from. And also, if you have any questions and or comments of our panelists, please use the Q&A feature, and I will do my best to gather the questions and ask them either during the presentation or at the end of it, whatever's most appropriate. First of all, I just wanted to introduce Ed Holroyd Pierce, who is the founder and president of Virtual Internships, and his colleague, Deborah Morrison, who is is head of partnerships for both North and South America for Virtual Internships. So thank you both for joining us today, and I'm sure we're going to have some great content and also some great questions and answers. So on that note, I will be operating the PowerPoint presentation. So just let me know when you'd like to go forward just by saying advanced slides. So over to you two.
Thanks so much, Matt. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and the opportunity to meet with all of you. I'm Deborah Morrison. I'm the head of partnerships for North and South America for Virtual Internships. And we have a presentation today that really focuses in on how we have found unique ways to partner with organizations in order to serve students or serve individuals outside of just students. So I wanted to get started by telling you a little bit about virtual internships first off. So if you can advance the slide there. First of all, I definitely want to introduce who we are and what we do. We are an ed tech company, and we are really focused on delivering global work experience programs. We actually were founded by Ed, who you will meet in a few moments, and our other co-founder, Dan Verne, in 2018, so pre-pandemic, with the goal of serving students and young people all around the world to give them the experience they need in order to pursue their dream careers. So we're really all about bridging that gap between education and the workplace, but more importantly, in making internships accessible to all students, so that it's not just for those who have the ability to move across the country or across the world to gain an internship experience or a global internship experience, but for anyone, no matter where they're located, to participate in these incredible programs and have the opportunity to gain the skills that they need in order to be successful in their career. Let me take a moment here. I'm going to pause actually and have Ed introduce himself so that we can start with both of us and before we move forward.
Sure. Thanks so much, Deb. Yeah, I thought I should say hi to everybody rather than just sitting here on the camera. And for those of you who were expecting Rachel Crisso, she just had a very minor car accident. She is absolutely fine, but we wish her well as she waits for rescue by the side of the road. And I'm delighted to step in and talk through the second half of the presentation today and take you through a couple of these programs. But as Deb mentioned, I'm one of the founders of Virtual Internships. Prior to that, we'd done CRCC Asia, which delivered over 10,000 internships in person. So we kind of feel like we have at least a little idea of what makes a good internship. And then also, we just saw all of those barriers in an in-person internship and thought about how we could reduce the barriers and also how we could have our program reflect the future of work just that little bit more. And we're very, very excited to share with you a few of the things that are going on at VI today. But meanwhile, over to you, Deb, and I'll see you guys in a few minutes, halfway through the presentation.
Thanks so much, Ed. Appreciate that. Matt, you can go ahead and advance the slide. So just a little bit more about virtual internships. The base of our program is the guaranteed remote internship. So we do have a very flexible model that allows us to work with partners of all types without restrictions on the number of individuals who are participating in the program or start dates or geography. So students and learners can be located anywhere in the world and can start at any point during the year. We also have very curated support that surrounds the internship program, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail here in a moment, but the idea is that it's customized to the individual in order to make sure that they are successful. We really think about who these learners are, whether they be students from a traditional background or, as you'll learn later, some women returning to work. And then we have a very global team. Our staff is dispersed all over the world. We have actually about 125 employees, and we're located in over 25 countries. So that helps us to really serve our learners no matter where they're located, and our partners. You can go ahead and advance a little bit. One more. So at the core of our program is our internship. We, as I said, are very flexible as far as how we work with partners in designing our programs, but it is that matched internship that's one-on-one between a student and their host company that we specialize in. They can do it for 1, 2, 3, or 4 months, for 10, 20, or 30 hours a week. And that's how we make sure that we can support any kind of program. And then we surround that with a scaffolding of support. So we have a weekly feedback loop that is really important to getting the individual participant to provide a report on what they've worked on, what they're going to work on, to rate their week, and for the supervisor to step in and provide some feedback to them. And they get this nice running list of what they've done and how they've improved throughout their time in their internship. We also have 2 coaching sessions for every student. These are one-on-one coaching sessions. So the student has the opportunity to work with a career coach midway through the internship, and then again at the end of their internship. At that midpoint, they focus on, really thinking about how to maximize the next few weeks and to get the most out of it. And at the end, they're really focused on leveraging the experience and putting it on their LinkedIn, on their resume, talking about it in future interviews and so forth. We also offer bi-weekly industry events and webinars. So every 2 weeks, there is a really interesting webinar where we interview somebody fascinating. One that sticks out of my mind a couple months ago actually was a professional consultant for public speaking who gave some great tips and tricks. And another one, we interviewed the founder of Netflix. So there's wide, broad range of professional development topics that are covered in those that give a student of any major the opportunity to really learn something new. Our program also has online curriculum that's focused on the NACE 8 core competencies of career readiness. And we measure the students on those 8 core competencies both before and after the program. We also survey their their host company supervisor. And at the end of the program, we can showcase their growth in those 8 skill areas through their end of program report. You can go ahead and advance now. So we work with companies all over the world and with students that are located all over the world. We have host companies in over 90 countries, and we work with over 10,000 host companies now. Actually, I think the number just went up to 12,000 the other day. So it continues to grow, that network of companies located everywhere. You can go to the next slide. Of those 12,000 host companies, about 40% are startups and another 50% are small to mid-size enterprises. I think you'll find this is really important, especially with the areas that Ed is going to speak about in a few minutes, because these smaller companies really give learners the opportunity to have access to decision makers. So they get a much better experience than they might in a virtual internship with a really large company. Now, we do have some partnerships with large companies that do an excellent job, but I do think that these small companies have been key in some of our unique programs and in connecting with learners of all types because they're more flexible and adaptable to working with students of all backgrounds. Okay. Go. So students will create a profile on our website. This is how they get into the program once we've established a partnership with their either their organization that they're associated with or their university. They'll build a profile that's essentially building their own resume out right there on the platform, and they'll upload a video application. That's a great way for us to learn more about the student, for them to sell themselves, and also for them to really talk about what they're looking for. We also share that with the host company so that they can learn a bit more about the student and get really excited about that individual. Then we'll make the match. So we have through our platform and through the support of our internship experience managers, we make sure that the students have a fantastic match. So they'll be shown a company and the placement that they'll be working on, and there'll be very clear projects outlined for them ahead of time so that they know exactly what they're going to be working on and the kinds of skills that they'll gain. Then they can set up their interview right there on the platform. And once they've had that interview, 90% of the time we've done our job well, and they move forward, and because both parties are happy. If the student says, hey, this isn't the right match for me, that's totally fine. We'll go back and find another placement for them, and we'll keep doing that because we do guarantee placements for every student. And then once they're in the program, of course, going back to that curriculum that's so important, we really want to help students to grow in their soft skills and their essential skills in order to become more employable. That is the goal of our program. And so these are those 8 core skills that are embedded throughout the program. And it also is weaving in how to be an effective remote employee as well, so that they're gaining those skills that they need to be working remote in the future, since frankly, that's where the future of work is, right? It's in remote jobs. So go ahead. As you can see, we've had some fantastic growth in students' skill sets between the beginning and the end of their internship program. Because like I said earlier, we do measure that, and we can showcase that growth back to the student at the end of their program and to our partners. So although we have lots of fantastic outcomes, I think one that's always worth mentioning is that about 20% of our interns are actually offered a future position, whether that be full-time paid or part-time paid or otherwise. But they are offered some sort of future position out of this. So it does really lead to future employment as well. And then they also get their certificate of completion that they can share out on LinkedIn, and an end of program report that really unpacks the experience and includes their evaluation from their supervisor, the completion of that's the curriculum, and their student assessment, as well as a global career management plan. And all of that will be presented to the student when the program is complete. We're partnered with a lot of universities, and I think that's obviously the base of what we do is work with universities. And what Ed's going to talk about is a large number of, or a few of our partnerships that are outside of universities, but I do want to showcase just the how we worked with different universities as well first. So if you pop to the next slide, Matt, just to showcase that we have the ability to be very flexible in our work, in our partnerships with different institutions, just as Ed's going to showcase these particular organizations we partnered with to really focus in on non-traditional students. Here are some of the examples of partnerships we have currently in the US and Canada and the UK as well. We have cohort models where we've got embedded it into a university course. We have a model with ASU where the dates are aligned perfectly with their calendar. And that way, both their online and their traditional students can participate. They happen to be getting credit from our school of record for the program, and then articulating that credit back into the particular academic area in which they are undertaking their degree program. We work to build cohort programs that are maybe an entire semester long, serving a totally different type of student. We also have department-specific types of partnerships where we're honed in on business students, for example, at USC Marshall, and we can provide them with additional support surrounding business as well, maybe an extra webinar or something to that effect. We've also developed a really neat program with some Australian and New Zealand universities. Victoria University Wellington is just one of those. We actually work with several, but that's focused on climate action and giving students the opportunity to build a climate action plan. So just showcasing that our flexibility in partnerships really allows for our partners to achieve different goals based on what their students' needs. And we are currently looking at some opportunities for Indigenous students up in Canada, for example, to participate more readily in these types of experiences. So there's more to come on that. And I just always love to share some of the student experiences and how much the students get out of the experience, but Ed has more to share on that as well, with showcasing a couple of our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Ed now.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Deb, for a very comprehensive introduction to the program, and I hope that that was useful for some of the audience. Next slide, please, Matt. So today we're going to look at 3 programs in a little more detail, and broadly, those programs have been designed to leverage and use all the flexibility of remote work and remote internships, while still delivering that bespoke or needed additional support. And primarily, we've got reducing cultural barriers, we've got widening participation, and just in general, providing opportunities for communities that need it. And let's look at the next slide to go to the first example. So this one is a program that I was directly involved with. And the reason why we're flooding you here with logos is because it really does take a village sometimes. The program was jointly run between Virtual Internships and Kiron. And Kiron is a German organization with an office and programs in Lebanon and operations elsewhere in the Middle East too. Now, initially, we ran a pilot for a small number of students just to check that it would work, and for students with refugee backgrounds based in Lebanon. That program ran last year, was great. We had 5 very engaged students, some great learning outcomes. And then just under a year later, Kiron came to us and said, hey, let's put in a proposal for a program that is run by Spark and funded by the Islamic Development Bank. So we were successful in that. And as a result, we're able to provide opportunities for 50 participants currently based in Lebanon. Majority were originally from Syria, but there are a few from other locations as well. All had gone through, kind of very challenging scenarios and situations, but were in Lebanon and were in education in university, mostly in the Lebanese university. They undertook an 8-week placement across 10 different career fields. As Deb mentioned, our program covers 18 different career fields, but among this cohort, there were 10 career fields represented. And the host companies were located in 19 different countries across 4 continents. And this was pretty interesting and useful because for a lot of those participants, they did have a plan to relocate to another country. Lebanon has taken on a huge number of refugees, but for many of them, it was simply the first safe haven they could get to. And many of them either have family members or connections in the UK, Canada, USA, India, elsewhere. And so it was actually looking at the program as a facilitator for that international experience, which was quite exciting. They obviously had support from the mentors within their host company. And we did do a lot of preparation work on making sure those host companies were ready for the students. And that included a number of things. For some of them, their English was lower than our regular American university student participants. So we did need to check that the host company supervisors were ready and comfortable with that. We also, unfortunately, had our program timed with a sort of period of, let's say, unrest in Lebanon, where there were some rolling blackouts, including problems with internet connectivity. So again, we did have a role to play in preparing those host companies to, let's say, problem solve around that communication issue. And they all did great. The students and the companies all did amazingly. You know, I can only be online for 2 hours today, so I will see you at this point. And by that stage, I will have recorded this presentation and told you what I want to do, et cetera, you know, even though it's out of hours or the middle of the night. And, you know, that was a challenge. The program and the funding also included data packages as well. It's pretty expensive in Lebanon to get toggling through your mobile phone or to buy data. So we did include that, you know, as a line item in the funding, which was great to be able to provide these participants with. You can see that we had our regular online career curriculum. We also had a couple of on-site sessions delivered through Kiron, which was really useful as well. You know, it was a chance to actually connect with the candidates and, you know, make sure that they did feel supported. And then obviously our intern experience managers were there every day at the end of the, on WhatsApp and on email and on any other communication channel that the interns needed for any support or, you know, problem solving. So yeah, that's sort of what the program was like. And Matt, yeah, we can move to the next slide. I wanted to just highlight one particular standout participant, Jihan Al-Assad, who, for anyone who's on my LinkedIn, I've been shouting about this for a couple of days. We just heard at the middle of last week that Jihan has actually been nominated in the Pioneer Awards as International Alumni of the Year. And Jihan has, you know, an amazing story. Like, she has basically overcome prejudice in society where, you know, some family or relatives believe that, you know, women shouldn't have a full education and shouldn't have a full-time job, and these kind of preconceptions. And so she overcame that. She helped her mother and sister also go back into work, which is incredible. And then she's also provided peer-to-peer networking. Since the program that she did with virtual internships, she has been mentoring newer arrivals from Syria and building confidence, particularly in presentation skills. So all of those things were amazing. It then turns out that she's got a second job as a fake news fact checker. You can imagine that in scenarios where people have somewhat limited access to news and data, it's quite easy for fake news to flourish, right? And so Jihan, having done some of this work during her internship with a Swedish company, has then used those skills to come back and do it locally for her community. So I just wanted to shout out there that Jihan is an absolute star, and we really hope that out of the 5 or 6 shortlisted people of this award, she does well. So yeah, thanks, Matt. Let's take a look at the next program. So this program I am also very excited about. We have 2 big programs running in Africa, specifically in sub-Saharan Africa. One is with the Honoris University Network, and the second is this one that you can see on this slide in front of you, and that's with Botho University. Botho is Botswana's largest tertiary education provider and has additional campuses in Lesotho and in Namibia. And for us, you know, this program was really exemplary in terms of bringing the world to the candidate. You know, I think it's very easy in the old world where everybody could travel to think about people jumping on planes to New York or to London or to Shanghai and getting that experience, which is great. but there are people who can't travel. And, primarily cost, but also logistics, visas, sometimes maybe unsupportive parents who don't want their child to jump on a plane and go away to a far-flung country. So for us, this program was really great and basically enabled many candidates. I think we've had 50 so far, and we've got another program already approved for the coming season. And basically, we've got one student, Leroy, here, who actually joined the URI conference, for anyone who's familiar with that, and gave a really moving speech about how, he signed up to this virtual internship, a bit unknown, and he never expected to become this face of Botho University around the world, and to be gaining experience in China, and then to be able to share that with his peers. And I think that's a kind of common thread with what I just mentioned about Jihan as well. The potential in many communities around the world for actually that peer-to-peer sharing and multiplying the experience really is exciting and amazing. So, we obviously wish Leroy our very best. We're really excited to see more participants from Botho University be able to sign up to our program and gain that international experience, which, quite honestly, there are not very many international finance organizations in Gaborone, the capital of Botswana, where this university is located. So for those students to be able to access an experience in, for example, in this one, international finance, is really exciting and could materially change their resume, their CV, their LinkedIn profile, their ability to articulate that at an interview, and then could be, well, they are more likely to succeed as a real breadwinner and improve their livelihood and that of their family potentially as well. So very excited to showcase that one. And finally, of our three, and again, this program I was actually involved in some of the delivery sessions, and big shout out to Gillian Lowe, who is our Chief Academic Officer at Virtual Internships, who has, always does amazing work, but particularly on this program, managed to break down all of the components that we can provide as standard in our regular internship program and work out how the delivery should be tweaked and changed and edited to best suit the participants on this program. So specifically, this is a government funded by Skills Development Scotland in Scotland, UK, for women who are over the age of 25 and are returning to work after a career break. And that is normally, childcare related. They've had a family, they have been looking after young children, but not exclusively. We actually had participants on the program who had time out of career for health reasons, including mental health. And we also had, people who'd been caring for elderly relatives and so on. So this is a really exciting program. I do apologize about the background noise from my children. They're just on their way to bed. Just bear with it. So basically, we've been really excited by this program, and it's first and foremost, the main thing has been confidence building. And it was really noticeable how, the ladies came on board, and in their onboarding calls, the common thread was, I feel out of touch with the world of work, particularly as it's moved on during the pandemic. How do I actually connect with companies? And how do I really make the most of my future career potential when I've had this time out and I've not been connected? So the way the program worked was actually a kind of cohort model and still project-based. So the ladies were in small groups and were working with local companies or regional companies. So within either the UK, England, or up in Scotland itself. And they worked on projects which were within their comfort zone and were inspiring them to think about how their skills, how their existing skills could actually be used and showcased. So a few of them were actually really nervous on the first induction session. Like, this sounds very complicated. I don't think I'll have enough value to add, etc. But very quickly, thanks to Gillian's amazing sessions and the way the program had been delivered, the women built up their confidence. We had an amazing series of skills workshops. We had panels where we had, people with lived experience of returning to work and all the difficulties and challenges, and had managed to overcome that. So the panel sessions were really great. We're really pleased with that. And I'm pleased to say that there have been amazing outcomes as well. The women were, amazing to work with and have been super positive, and many of them have thrown themselves right back into the workplace. And I'm pleased to say that that program also got extended. So we got another year and another quite ambitious target of number of ladies to serve on the program. But Matt, if you would go to the next slide, and we will just test the tech, if that's all right. Press play, and I hope that everybody can hear it. If you're having a problem, just put something in the chat. Okay, we need some volume, Matt, please. I'll go on mute. You need to come off mute. Matt, we still can't hear it. You need to come off mute, I think.
Brilliant to be a part of it, and I can't wait to see these women flourish.
I certainly feel that I can have something to offer the workplace again,
and now I feel like I've got a little guidebook for how to get started.
So thank you, Ed, Sophie and Sabu, for making this a successful program, and you guys have really made a difference in my life as well.
Because I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do with my life. I had lost everything, and now I have a focus and a passion. Absolutely changed my life completely. I'm a completely different person than I was.
And yeah, I've got a job to work on now.
I got offered the job within 2 hours.
Great. Thank you very much, Matt. So, okay. Matt, thank you very much, and I hope everybody enjoyed that video. It is that is the recruitment video for our next cohort of ladies, obviously, but we just thought that those messages at the end were quite powerful and worth demonstrating how useful a program like this could be for women. So hope that was of interest, and I think without further ado, we're very much open to some Q&A, I think. But I'll let you kind of MC, right, Matt?
Yeah. So thank you very much for that, Ed and Deborah. And that video is really powerful. So powerful that I had to put it on mute for the first 10 seconds so that we could replay it to get the full impact. So thanks again for an amazing presentation. We do have lots of questions, which is great. So I'll just dive into that. So Lisa Chow asks, what kind of training do the company coaches go through to ensure that they are supporting the interns appropriately? So I'll just throw that out to either one of you.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Ed.
Take it, but yeah, go ahead and join in a second, Deb, and tell me which bits I miss out. So I would say the main bit for the majority of host companies is actually preparing them for the projects. We get them to submit project plans, and something we found with this whole thing being remote is that it's extra important to have that plan in place. When an in-person intern shows up at 9:30 in the morning and they're just sitting there, somebody will give them something interesting to read or something useful to do. But if they are not there on site, it is of extreme importance to have a really detailed project plan. And sometimes that does involve us rolling our sleeves up and giving some advice or some tips on how to fix this project or how to make it a bit better and meaningful, and particularly like to balance the benefit towards the student rather than just towards the host company. So I'd say for me, that's like the main one. Deb, did you want to add any of the others in terms of how we prepare host companies?
Yeah, I would. I would just want to comment that we also have a training module that every host company goes through. And so for the site supervisor for that particular intern will go through a training module that really helps them to think about how to be a really good mentor, how to support the student in all the best ways, and also just to take into consideration some of the same things we ask our students to consider, like time zone differences and cultural communication differences and so forth. So that there's helpful hints that are sent out regularly to the host company site supervisor throughout the internship to help them to think through that the mentorship piece. And then the other piece is that weekly feedback loop is really important, because not only does the student indicate what they've been working on, but their site supervisor comes in and provides feedback to that. And it forces them to actually think about that feedback that they need to give on a regular basis every single week, not just, at the end of the internship, so that the student's getting that regular flow of commentary and support and advice on how to be better or what they're doing great already. So those are some key components in the structure of what we do that make sure that the intern is well supported as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that comprehensive answer. The next question is, do you have any resources for interns who may have a lack of access to technology or Wi-Fi for their virtual internships? And I just wanted to add, I believe this question came in at the part of your presentation where you're talking about the refugee program. So I don't know if it is in relation to that or just in general.
Great. Yeah, very happy to take that one. We don't have a sort of company-wide rent a laptop program, although it is something that we've looked at and we would absolutely love to be able to roll out. We have found location-specific or program-specific opportunities for accessing digital devices, and we are always there as like a signpost. If a student applies and then says, I actually don't have a laptop or I can't find the right connectivity, we'll always try and find the solution that works for them. But if, future models, we hope will roll out bigger access to more digital devices for sure.
Fantastic. Okay, so the next question is, what are some goals that virtual internships is working towards for the future?
Wow, that is a very big and exciting question. We're moving so fast at the moment, I couldn't possibly cover that in the remaining time that we have for the Q&A, but I guess a few things that I in particular am excited about is programs like this. So government funded programs that provide heightened levels of access to work experience for underrepresented communities. And I think the power of these remote work programs to do that is very, very exciting. We're doing a lot of tech development on our platform, and I don't know if any of you guys are going to be at NAFSA, but we'll be showcasing a few of the things that you might be able to expect in the future. But broadly, some additional automation that will improve the matching process, and also some more visibility for partners. So let's say either these governments or Kiron or people working with us on refugee programs or universities will in the future be able to literally log in and see the progress of all their students through our internships, which we think will be pretty useful. Deb, any ones that you're probably aware of more than me that I've missed?
No, I mean, I think you've covered a lot, but the big piece for me is the improvements on the platform, which really allows us to serve more students, frankly, and the ability to work with different partners on very large numbers of participants, I think is one of the most exciting things about the future.
Fantastic. Next question is, what are the main challenges that students and companies face during the internship duration? How does virtual internships support them?
That's a great question. Frankly, a lot of the challenges come down to communication. That doesn't cover everything, but it either is a lack of communication on either the student side or the supervisor side, or both, right? And there are multiple opportunities for the student and the company to get support if there is some sort of issue that comes up. So we have an internship experience manager that's assigned to the student, and we have a company experience manager that's assigned to the company. That means they always have somebody they can go to within virtual internships to ask for questions, to get support, and then we will tie them back together again, right? The other piece is that feedback loop that I was speaking about earlier. We have eyes on that, so it gives us the opportunity to see if something maybe isn't going quite right. And there's trigger points in the system to tell us, hey, pick up the phone, call the company, call the student, and let's figure out what's going on here and get to the bottom of it before it's 6 weeks down the road and we didn't realize there was an issue. So there's some preemptive pieces in there too, that allow us to step in and get to the bottom of it. And if we need to mediate a situation, we will. I mean, frankly, if it was really off the rails, we could even find the student another placement, but that very, very, very rarely happens. Point being, it typically boils down to communication or too much work, not enough work. And so that, again, is a piece of communication that just has to be resolved and for us to support on. Ed, did you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I might just, if I may, one additional thing that comes to mind is, in that feedback loop, I think what is important to emphasize is that we manage to essentially like de-escalate or desensitize that feedback. So a host company supervisor may effectively say, this intern's critical thinking is a 6 out of 10, right? It's not ideal, but we are in the middle of that situation and are able to provide that feedback in a more constructive way, and also link the intern back into our career bridge, which is our employability curriculum, and show them what the steps are to turn that 6 out of 10 into a 7 out of 10, into an 8 out of 10. And then as Deb said, there's that feedback loop, which helps them. So I would say there aren't that many problems that can't be resolved either by really monitoring that feedback loop and then giving them the resources they need, or by noticing that something isn't going quite right and then jumping on whatever communication channel with the host company and with the intern and working out what we need to do to sort it out. Of course, that is not mentioning like Lebanese power blackouts and not being able to access the internet. So that's, that's there on my radar as like a big thing that can go wrong. But yeah.
Fantastic. Our next question is from Marissa Miller, and I just want to say, Marissa, thank you for asking your questions. You asked another question in another session, so I appreciate your attending the sessions and asking really thoughtful questions. So the question is, I love the refugee and women returning to work internship opportunities. Do you have scholarships or reduced cost opportunities available for students who are unable to afford the cost to work with virtual internships?
Sure. So we absolutely do. We run scholarships each year, but to be very honest to Marissa and any of the audience listening, what we are working towards is more sustainability of the model. And while we can give scholarships, there's always going to be a limit to that. What we would much prefer to do is to find, for example, government funding, which will support a underrepresented community, like the Scottish one has done, because they are going to be able to allocate more funds to our program and make it more impactful than us purely saying like, here's 5 scholarships. Likewise, I think some large corporates, and this is a new area for us, some corporates are willing to support such communities, and we are rolling out a a line of programming that would work to help put those corporations and their responsibilities, like maybe CSR budgets, towards low-income students or certain underrepresented communities, and enable them to flourish through a virtual internship. So I think that's the kind of broad angle. Is like, yes, we do give some scholarships, but we are certainly at the stage we're at never going to be able to do as much as if we apply for the right funding. And I guess to any of the audience out there, please do ask any corporates that you are tapped into, if they have some employability programs or they have some funding, we'd absolutely love to reposition that to help your students on our program. That would be the win.
And just to build on that, Ed, we had a session on Monday in which we talked about the Canadian kind of government funding model. So they have a couple different programs in place. One was with International Experience Canada, but the other one is Global Skills Development, and it basically is being run by the various universities and colleges in Canada, and it's really trying to serve the students from backgrounds with lesser means, or Indigenous students, or underrepresented populations. So I'm hoping that there's a lot more of that that's going to be coming down the pipeline from various government levels and sort of private public partnerships. So, and Ed, I think you touched on working on a program with somebody that you just got in touch with, I believe, at the conference in Canada. So
yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully there'll be more of that. So thank you again, Marissa, for your excellent question. I have a question, or kind of a comment. I know that Aston Business School was an early adopter of virtual internships. Elsa Zanatti-Daniels is a huge fan of you guys. And I'm just curious as to, so they basically, I believe, formed a partnership with virtual internships in 2018, 2019, certainly before the pandemic. And I'm just wondering how a program like that has evolved over the last now 4 years, and what differences are there in place for a program like that?
Yeah, great question, Matt. Well, indeed, Elsa is a great fan of ours and has been working really closely with us, as you say, since like 2018. I think we actually interviewed her when we were thinking about virtual internships, and I was writing a paper for my MBA thesis on it. I mean, yeah, if you get Elsa in a Zoom room and ask her how the program has changed, I would love to hear it, like the screenshots even that she could show of our first iterations and how clunky they were, and all the different interventions. And I mean, we've come a long way, and I think that's kind of testament to our team's responsiveness. We're very proud to be a fast-moving startup that sees things that can be fixed or can be done better, and rolls up our sleeves and gets our hands dirty and fixes them. So that's been really exciting. The program has changed. The availability of companies has gone through the roof. I think the way I would phrase it is that, the pandemic has been this catalyst where it's really been a mind opener for people who previously may have thought that tech roles could be done remotely, but nothing else, and actually now it's students, it's host companies, all understanding that, hey, this is a viable way to get experience. We're not saying that every single person should only have remote experiences, but we're saying that in terms of expanding access to work experience, this is a really useful tool for all of us. But specifically in terms of numbers, I remember already the time I was literally walking up the street and Elsa called me on my mobile and was like, hey, do you know the 30 students who we've got booked with you guys to start like in a month's time? Can we double that number? And then literally within a couple of hours, I think that went from 30 to 70 to 100. So that was really exciting quite early on in the pandemic. But what we've seen with Aston and with a few of our other large university partners is that rather than decreasing numbers as restrictions are dissipating for COVID, they've actually increased them. They've built them into programs because of the scalability and the, I would say, standardized outcomes. You know, even though there are 100 students with potentially 100 different host companies, each student is a different individual person and each company is a different individual host company. Those students, by going through our program with its touch points, its coaching and its online curriculum, we and the university are able to guarantee that they've had exposure to really useful career learning outcomes. And that's quite exciting. You know, we can see it going to hundreds of thousands of students in the future.
Excellent. Deb, I saw a smile on your face when I mentioned ELSA, so I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add, but
no, nothing else that I wanted to add specific to that program, but I do think that it is wonderful to see how much these programs, as Ed said, have changed over time. And, you know, they went from being, in some cases, a response to and reaction to the pandemic and needing to get students who wanted global experience another option. And now it's shifted this mentality to, we want all our students to have global experiences. We want them all to live in this space, right? And so let's think about how we can embed it into curriculum so that it's just access for more students as opposed to just those who want to go abroad. So that's been a nice change to see over time too. And I thought Ed's comment about the pandemic being a catalyst was right on in that respect.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to combine the next two questions into one. Is there a timeline for applying to internships, or is it year-round and ongoing? And then I'm going to add what are the costs involved for students to apply?
Sure, I'll take that. So timeline is interesting. When we work in partnership with universities to develop programs, we can develop a program that works for that particular institution. That we do have rolling admissions where programs start every 2 weeks, and it could be wide open like that, or it could be aligned with academic calendars or with specific intakes that that particular institution wants for their students. If it's just a one-off student that's applying directly to our website, they can choose any date that's 10 weeks out, for example, or more, and for their start date. And then again, they can choose their own durations and commitment levels as far as the week. So lots of flexibility there, but they do run year round is the bottom line. As far as costs, again, if a student just applies straight up on our website, it's $1,495. But when we work in partnership with institutions, that's a big difference because we do offer discounts. And then we also often are working with the universities, again, that are building out cohort models, and they are actually paying for the program in some way. And so the students don't necessarily pay for it directly to us. The cost is being absorbed in some other way, of all the ways that Ed's talked about as far as government funding or university has found some outside funding, whatever it is. And so they may never pay anything for it. So that's a tough question to answer because every student is different and every situation is different.
Yeah, I've found that over the years. It depends where the university is located. So for example, if the university is in Australia, they might get a lot of government funding versus in the US, students sometimes can apply or get student aid that goes towards the program. So it all depends. There's many factors. So just going on to the next question with Alessa, I think I'm going to take it in bite-sized chunks. So the first part of the question is, when applying for online internship programs, do you also provide support to applicants in order to help get the application materials ready, as there are so many differences from country to country, as well as the kind of career guidance? So let's start with that question first.
Yeah, sure. You can see both me and Deb are nodding because we absolutely do. Broadly, students can either self-serve from CareerBridge and find best practice for CVs. We have some online workshops, but they're connected directly with their intern experience manager. So they will be able to take them through any improvements that are recommended for their resume. They also, as Deb mentioned briefly in her slides, they do this recorded video, which is really neat and is, first of all, great practice for them because a lot of recruitment pipelines now do use video interviewing, so they get to record that. But we also get to kind of screen them a little bit with that. And if they need to improve their video, or we think that they should actually highlight something different from their resume before we put it in front of a host company, we could intervene at that point and say, hey, you're not selling yourself as much as you could, or this video could be better. So short answer, yes.
Okay, great. Next part, how do you foster a regular exchange and communication between the interns themselves?
So we actually do have a weekly peer-to-peer chat session that occurs between all interns who are on the program at the same time, which is really neat if the students are from different backgrounds and cultures and countries, because they are really able to learn from one another. We use Slack for that because we do find we get better engagement than we do from Zoom or anything where there's video and like a specific timeline on it. So the questions, prompts are put out, and then students can answer at their leisure, right? Like a chat box, obviously Slack, as you know, and allows them to, contribute their thoughts as their time zone permits. And that way they learn from one another through that. And of course, they can always connect with one another directly if they wish to, based on what they're learning from one another in the Slack chat.
Great. Next part, do they have the opportunity to virtually meet and talk about their personal and professional experiences and to self-reflect, sorry. And if so, what are the media? You talked about the Slack chat, but what's the media that you use?
Yeah, so for students to reflect with one another, it's through that Slack channel, and it's through those weekly peer-to-peer sessions. If they're looking to self-reflect with someone else outside of their peers, they will do that with their internship coach, which is a virtual internships employee who is certified in coaching and has the ability to really help them to think through that self-reflection. So that's where they'll really get the most self-reflection, I think, is in those two career coaching sessions.
Fantastic. And then just the final question, are the internships paid or unpaid?
Oh, they're unpaid internships because of, there's so many different factors involved here, but yeah, they are unpaid.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're pretty much at the hour, and we've had lots of great questions and many great answers as well. My only the only down part of this whole session is that I was really hoping to see Ed's kids before they went to bed. I would have paid money if they jumped on his shoulder or something like that, but maybe next time. But I wanted to thank our panelists for a really thought-provoking conversation and insightful conversation on virtual internships, not only just the organization, but virtual and remote internships as a concept, as a field. So thank you both for joining us here today. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has joined us online. Today's session is being recorded and will be available just in a few hours time. So feel free to watch it again if you want to, or share it with your colleagues or friends who were not able to make it today. And beyond that, Ed and Deborah, do you have any parting comments that you'd like to make before we sign off?
Oh, sure. I would like to say thank you very much, Matt, for having us here today. It's been great. I hope Rachel's car has now been towed and fixed, etc. If anyone does have any questions or would like to connect, please do so. Deb and I are very much available and would love to chat. But nothing else, Matt. Just thank you very much. Great job. And the tech played ball.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much. And let's check on Rachel. I'm sure she's fine. And we'll see everyone else online or in person at NAFSA in just a couple of weeks' time. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, Matt.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.